Welcome everyone to a class here in the Primal Trust Academy and community. Today we have with us Tessa Malcarne, one of my favorite people ever. For those of you who don't know her, she was a longtime DNRS neuroplasticity coach for DNRS, and that's how I met her. She was actually my brain retraining coach back in the day, about, 4 years ago or so. And now Tessa has her own practice helping people with their process of healing from limbic system related issues. And she comes into the community from time to time for us to have some juicy conversations and illuminate some things in the brain retraining world. And today we are going to be talking about recovery and what that word means. And we titled this Reframing Recovery because we found that this particular word is used all the time in the world of self-healing and chronic illness healing, brain retraining. And it's a word that has a particular meaning that is growing, we're finding to potentially be something that might be limiting people's progress, actually, when we think about what this word means and how it relates to our journey. And so we want to just have a conversation about that with all of you and share some of our thoughts and experiences regarding this goal of aiming for recovery, what that word might mean, how to reframe it. Not that the word is bad, but what it's come to mean to people might not be helpful. So I'll just kind of pause there. So Tessa, introduce yourself, tell us about yourself, and maybe start with some thoughts.
Okay. All right. Hi, everyone. It's nice to be here. I think you told enough about me, Dr. Kat. I don't know if I need to say any more, but I'm happy to be here, and I'm excited about this topic. Because, and I'm going to start out talking about my own recovery story, recovery in quotes, because I don't use that language and I haven't for many years. So my recovery, quote unquote, it started when I discovered DNRS, and I somehow missed the entire concept of recovery. I missed the whole, you can recover in 6 months. I entirely missed the idea that this was a process that could take any set amount of time. I just thought, okay, I'm going to apply the principles behind what I've learned in these DVDs. I'm going to apply the science I've learned in a way that's meaningful to me and see where that leads me. And each day I thought about this process not as a recovery and never thinking of there being a finish line. And I didn't hold myself to any kind of time frame. So I developed my own way of thinking about this healing journey that I always used to say I was chipping away at this rewiring process each and every day, that every day I was one step closer to having a regulated and balanced nervous system, that each day was an opportunity to fine tune the tools I felt really spoke to me and worked for me. Not knowing there was a time frame gave me this piece throughout my rebalancing journey, which is now what I refer to as a rebalancing. So that's the language I'm going to use. Because the word recover, like Dr. Kat said, although it's not inherently negative or damaging, it has taken on a different life in this larger healing community. And it certainly implies that we are broken and need fixing. And in my opinion, it makes us feel that way when we use that term consistently. If we're saying, I am recovering from blank thing, it's saying that we need to be fixed. And I also believe, because I've seen it so many times with my clients, that it wears on our resilience. It challenges our inner strength and it dampens our spirit, because it's become something that I actually don't think anybody could have predicted and did not mean for it to turn into. But I see it leading to perfectionism and causing self-doubt, inner criticism, and adding loads of stress to what's already pretty tricky. And I've seen and felt this through my clients since the beginning of my coaching. So the word never really resonated with me. But I think that looking at it as a transformation, as Dr. Kat says, or a rebalancing, as I say, or looking at it as an awakening, a journey, a way you are learning yourself and your nervous system, a way to grow a relationship with the nervous system so you can carry that relationship with you through life, so you can enjoy your life to the fullest with the most amount of joy and lightheartedness. I think rebalancing or transforming says that our nervous systems are in a state in which things might not be perfect, but that we are already in a process of working through that, right? So we are on our way already to evening out and finding homeostasis. But neither one of those terms to me say that we're broken or ever have been, and we aren't needing fixing, and that there's nothing wrong with who we are right now. It doesn't say that we're sick. And so these kinds of terms, they speak to me so much more, and they always have. So back to my story, that I had no time frame and there's no rush. And it wasn't that I was putzing around thinking I had all of the time in the world, because I really wanted to have a life free of the challenging symptoms that I was experiencing. I wanted to stop having panic attacks every day. And but there was no pressure on me to fit into anybody else's expectations or expectancies. And I look back on that now and I'm so grateful for it, that I had no idea. I had no idea at the time that missing this information actually served me so well and would continue to serve me so well. Uh, Dr. Kat, do you want to say anything before I go on?
I just really love how you shared with people, just to echo, Tessa didn't have the programming of, you do this for 6 months and here's the expected recovery time. Without that expectation, that program, that structure, she was able to tap into her own experience and just live what it was today, instead of like, oh, I'm 4 months in, I'm 5 months in, oh no, I'm almost 6 months in and I don't feel recovered. I might not be doing it right. Do you see how that setup of a timeline can really create a lot of stress that is so common in this limbic system retraining world? And so I love, Tessa, how you described that you didn't have some external standard giving you pressure, which in a lot of ways, ironically, can reduce people's progress, because they're always in comparison. I love the word rebalancing. And this is why. So in the blog that I wrote about recovery, I said, I don't love that word because it implies an endpoint. And whenever something implies an endpoint and you're not at that endpoint, you feel less than. You feel like you want to go here, but you're here. And as you guys know, in Primal Trust, I'm always showing you this 2-point awareness that creates a stress pattern in our nervous system. If the future is better than now, we're inherently in resistance. So using words that don't have a future endpoint, I think allow us to have more spaciousness today. So the word transformation, how are you transforming today? Rebalancing, how did you come into balance today? Maybe it looked like this, but there were times where you felt more imbalanced and out of balance. And anyway, in this moment and today, how were you rebalancing? How is that thing that you want for the future actually part of your experience today, so that we can feel like every day we're having a success, rather than I will have success when I have that recovery, this endpoint. There's a difference. So I'll just say that.
I love that. I will touch upon some of the points that you just made further in my discussion. So I love the way you just said that. Kind of piggybacking off of what you said, I have so many clients who are either under 6 months and stressed about 6 months approaching, or those at 6 months and feeling stressed that they are nowhere near recovered. And then I have clients who are years past 6 months feeling like failures, beating themselves up every day because they are a disappointment to themselves, feeling disheartened and feeling as if they should just give up. No, you will not give up. Absolutely not. The focus on being done is overrated and overvalued and glorified. And it causes us to become frustrated because we see this, what seems like unattainable finish line that keeps getting further and further away the more we put pressure on ourselves to get there. And we've all experienced that. We feel like our nervous system is really rebalancing, and we're seeing a lot of progress, and then the limbic system has a little bit of a hiccup, and then all of a sudden we feel like we've lost everything because we're further away from the finish line. Whereas if we took that finish line out of the equation, we would see more realistically what's happening. The limbic system is afraid of change, right? We see things more logically and rationally when we recognize that this rebalancing process, or this transformative process, it has like little ups and downs, and that's okay. So anyway, so I have clients that just are so fixated on this idea, and they thought the finish line was right in front of them, and this life stressor occurs, and then they feel the rug was pulled out from underneath them. And it doesn't need to feel that way, because honestly, 6 months is an arbitrary, trivial number. It's based on what brain science says about the brain and how it heals structurally. That 6 months is like this sweet spot where so much structural change can occur, and that your brain can be vastly different from when you restarted the retraining process, right? And I know, of course, that the concept of the 6 months is intended to be motivating and to give us hope, like, wow, you can be a totally different person in 6 months. But coming with it is, it makes us feel as if there's like a ticking clock just hovering above us, that ticking clock is, and that ticking clock somehow measures our success and growth, and somehow has a say about our progress. So what I used to tell my clients when I coached through this other neuroplasticity program is, yes, it says you can recover in 6 months, but in order to do so, it means that you are taking all aspects of said program and you're implementing them each day with pretty good accuracy, and you're doing all of what that program says. Who does that? Who can do that when they first start something? Nobody that I have ever coached, definitely not myself, definitely not you, Dr. Kat. And I think you're proud to say that. Nothing in life that we are ever new to is ever easy. And we know that, but then we look at this rebalancing process as it being somehow different, but it's not. So there's a couple reasons why I see that we can't just jump in to this rewiring process with the accuracy and precision that is needed. But before I go into that, Dr. Tat, do you want to say anything?
No, it's good. Keep going.
Okay. So the first reason I find is that when we first start out, our focus is so concentrated on the physical stuff that we are experiencing. It's all that we can really feel to care about, because the physical stuff is so much more in our face, right? So we steer our efforts towards pruning away any thoughts, feelings, habits, emotions, beliefs, behaviors that are associated with the physical symptoms. We really focus on that. And then once we feel we've made headway in that area, our focus can shift to becoming more of an inward journey. But when we talk about this idea of recovering in 6 months, that means that we begin that 6 months by implementing all of the pieces together. And that means we're balancing the physical and the emotional and the belief systems, and 100% knowing this is limbic impairment and there's nothing wrong with us. And we're doing all of this simultaneously. Some of us can do that, but I can tell you right now, I could not. It took me many months to finally grasp the concepts that I needed to pull all together to really get my brain to change. So, and it doesn't even, this is a hypothetical question, but it doesn't even make sense to start with pulling the pieces all together and simultaneously, or does it actually make sense to focus on what is the most challenging to us so we can get back some quality of life. To me, that makes more sense. And you can choose what makes most sense to you, because all of our limbic imbalances are definitely very different. But to me, that makes more sense. That's exactly what I did. And I see that pattern with with most of my clients, that focusing on the physical stuff, that's the most in your face. And then when you feel like you have control and confidence in that area, then you can look more to the belief systems, the fear-based thinking patterns. Of course, we have to look within when we're working through the physical stuff as well. But what I mean is that our focus begins mostly on the physical, and then it shifts to mostly emotional over time. And another reason why I feel we never start out with this near precision is that in order to truly change the brain structurally, we have to abandon all old belief systems. Because in order to change the structure of the brain, we have to find evidence against everything we have been fearing and all information that has been perpetuating the stress response. But who can do that immediately? Of course, using a program every day allows us to chip away at those belief systems slowly. But some clients that come to me have been doing a program for many years and still hold on to those old belief systems that are based in fear. So how would their brain structurally change? Very much? It's not possible. So for those two reasons, I see this 6-month time period being very unrealistic and troublesome, and only leading to unrealistic expectations, when what we should really be focusing on is the fear inside, the fear of the symptoms, the fear of stimuli. Wouldn't that change the brain structurally more effectively than putting pressure on ourselves to quick heal or risk looking like a failure to everyone? So back to my own recovery story. So it took me a few years to rebalance my nervous system, but I feel like I got back a pretty decent quality of life within a shorter period of time, because I didn't have this pressure looming over me. I wasn't thinking I was a failure because it had been a year or so when I started to feel like I had, less anxiety, less physical symptoms. And when it was about 2 years, I did not even know it. I honestly never kept track. And I have clients who come to me and say, it's my 254th day of retraining. And then they ask me how long it took me to recover. And I'm like, I think I started one summer, or maybe it was fall. And I think it took me about a few years. I don't know. I never counted. And I know it sounds ridiculous. Like, this is your job. Shouldn't you know? But I purposely, to this point, have never even tried to figure it out. I would have to go back many years and probably go through records of like when I purchased things. And then I don't even know how I would figure out when I felt totally rebalanced. I guess it was like pretty, like a few months before I began coaching for DNRS, but this is how little I care about it. And that's how little I want to convey to all of you and to all of my clients, that I care. I want you to see that it doesn't matter, and that it can be done without a time frame, and that finish lines and time frames complicate the process. It causes us to feel frantic and stressed and pressed for time and desperate. Dr. Kat, do you want to jump in?
Sure. I lost service for a little bit here, so
Oh
I don't
no.
actually. Anyway, yeah, I think that you're describing how the time frames keep us from recognizing the journey that we're on, and get it in and how it can keep us in resistance to where we're at. And I guess the second thing I want to make sure that we talk about today is the identity, this status that is being driven into the community of becoming a certain identity, the identity of being a fully recovered person, the identity of being able to wear this recovery badge, the blue ribbon that says I've recovered. And that if you don't have that recovery badge, well, you can't really help people because you're not fully recovered, and you can't, it's this identity. And then the issue is that because our brains are changeable, life happens. Sometimes I see people claim full recovery, and then life hits them, and all of a sudden they have symptoms again, and they freak out. because they had a status, they had an identity, they had a popularity, and now they aren't that. And they have a freak out of identity because they use that word to become part of them. And there is an issue there. So I'm just gonna, any thoughts that you have about anything you've seen regarding that in your end, Tessa?
Yeah, I've seen similar to you where there's these, what did you call them? The superstars, the like,
The
I don't remember.
celebrities.
The celebrities, yeah. And I've had these clients come back to me and say that they're embarrassed, that they can't share what's really going on, that they've hit a stressful patch in life and life has become really challenging and they don't feel equipped and they need me to guide them through it. And happily I do so. I was never part of the community of healing. I said that in a previous talk, but I didn't mention it today. There wasn't as much of it when I was rebalancing my nervous system about 8 years ago or so. There wasn't like the WhatsApp groups and the greater healing community where everybody's in contact with one another and people's names are kind of being thrown around. Oh, did you hear this person is recovered? Did you hear this person is recovered? I didn't have to deal with any of that, but I hear it behind the scenes from my clients who I hear comparing themselves to people who are recovered, whose names are well known in this community. So I never felt that pressure myself, but I hear it all the time. And I think we need to be careful with that word recovery if we're going to throw it around, because then, especially if our name is being thrown around or well known, we have to be careful what we're messaging to others who may be looking up to us, right? That, look, I recovered, I'm done now, but actually I'm not, because I was looking at this as a recovery, not a transformation or a rebalancing. And now I've left my tools behind and wiped my hands clean of it. And now I don't feel like I can handle life, but I can't share that with everybody because then they feel like they've lost the person they're looking up to. And that, it just makes me very sad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it puts people in a real hard spot. And I think it's an issue. That's why I felt so prompted to write those blog post series, because I've had so many people in the last year, especially year and a half, come to me saying, Kat, I need help. I'm coaching. I'm a celebrity, but I'm actually having these issues, but I can't have anyone know about it because I've claimed full recovery. And it's like, this isn't okay, because it's perpetuating a picture of perfection, which we're trying to break in the first place. Big part of limbic system issues is that perfectionism, and we're perpetuating this lack of messy humanity. That's an issue that I see as well. And so it needs to come forward. And so, I feel sad that there's all this pressure that is placed on, because the community's gotten so tight knit with groups and coaching circles and WhatsApp. There's been this division that gets created of the recovered ones and the not recovered ones. And, it's just an issue. So I think it's important to just really be careful of the identity that you're shooting towards here. Not that, and I want to say this, after I wrote the recovery blog, I had a couple people say, what, you don't believe in recovery? I'm like, no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that there's another word that can imply a lifelong transformation, that maybe like my physical symptoms that debilitated me don't debilitate me anymore, but I still have like nervous system sensitivities. And, I use tools, I use somatic presencing, I use emotional processing. I'm not perfect. And that's how life is. It's not perfect, but it doesn't mean you need to be debilitated and can't go anywhere. It's just, for me, when I decided this is a journey of me self-realizing myself and transforming, I didn't have some endpoint that if I didn't meet, it meant I failed. I didn't want to have a failure success internal world anymore. And I really think that it's beneficial for everyone to be careful of the words they use for their goals, so that it isn't life will be better when, or I will be worthy or okay when, but rather something that you can live today. I can transform today. I can rebalance. I can come, bring things into balance today. And so our words are powerful, our goals are powerful, and I'm just trying to create some disruption in something that I think is creating a weed in the community. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You kind of led right into my next point that I wanted to make was the most important reason I feel we should not see this process as a recovery is because our goal should not be to wipe our hands clean of this work and move on with our lives. It should be to foster and cultivate a nourishing, trusting, loving relationship with our nervous systems. This relationship will last our lifetimes. And so thinking of reaching a finish line, it completely neglects this idea altogether, right? Because life will always provide us with circumstances that require us to need to be able to calm ourselves down, to reframe, to release tension, to not internalize, to focus on the good instead of focusing on the negative. So we need these tools that we're learning now, the ones that resonate with us, the ones that we connect with. And we need to carry those with us. And this finish line alludes to the idea that we are just done. It's a silly idea. This process of rewiring the brain, rebalancing the nervous system, or transforming the self can and should be looked at as a process of inner growth, that we are acquiring tools to live a calm, confident, peaceful life where our nervous system feels safe. And it is our job, our prefrontal cortex's job, in a world where the limbic brain does not understand. The limbic brain does not understand stimuli in the ways in which stimuli is presented to us today. The limbic system was never equipped, it never evolved to understand emotional stress, yet that's the stress we most endure today, right? The limbic system was meant to look for threats, right? Lions chasing us, other clan activity, issues with food and things of that nature. And so it's our job to recognize that our limbic brain, it doesn't have the tools, so we have to provide the tools for it. And we want this relationship to be healthy and forgiving and loving and compassionate, because the nervous system will always want to protect us. That's never going to stop. So if we reach this finish line, we wipe our hands clean of this work. The nervous system isn't going to stop doing what it's doing right now. Right now, my nervous system is processing sensory information to try and figure out if I'm safe, right? And that's actually advantageous. Let's not forget that. Let's not forget that we need our nervous systems to do that. So anyway, my larger point is just, let's think of this as a connection that we are building right now, that we are building for the future. And that relationship with our nervous system, it becomes so seamless. Do you agree with that, Dr. Kat? Once you feel you've rebalanced your nervous system, what that really means is that your relationship with your nervous system is seamless. You are so close knit and so knowing of your nervous system that you both understand each other so well. You've closed the gap between that primal brain and the new world we now live in, because now you know how to speak to your nervous system, and you know what your nervous system is saying to you when it is feeling stressed and overwhelmed.
Yes, I think you perfectly described primal trust, which was my big
Give me-
aha of oh my gosh, the pathway isn't just retraining the brain. It's the primal survival mixed with our conscious capacity to meet that and bring in trust. And that inner relationship that we talk so much about in the mentorship of carving this adult main personality that can meet ourselves somatically, intimately, and know which tools to apply when it is our responsibility to regulate our biology. It is our responsibility, and it's a lifelong responsibility. Like you said, you don't wipe your hands of it like, oh, now the nervous system will just do it all itself. Like, no, we must become self-regulating adults, knowing how to assist our bodies and nervous system through life. That doesn't mean you suffer throughout your life and your body has all these, these horrible symptoms. Not at all. In fact, the quicker and the more that you get clear of like, like instead of worrying about Lyme disease or mold toxicity or food issues, like, oh, I've got to come into me. This is a process of meeting my own nervous system and consciously self-regulating my biology. It becomes a journey that's the symptoms and your issues will resolve on their own because you're focusing on what the issue was in the first place, which was no core central sense of self that's governing your limbic system. And that's the deal. And so when you're doing this just to get your symptoms to go away, you're missing the point. We're doing this to come home to ourselves.
Yes, yes, yes. I love that so much. I think instead of this idea of recovery, let's take it day by day. And I said this to a client the other day, and it seemed like this really resonated with her. So I wanted to share it. Today, you can be more rebalanced than you were yesterday. Isn't that true? And isn't that more encouraging and uplifting than thinking of this arbitrary finish line and trying to figure out how to get there? How about what can I do right now, just in this moment, to lead me to becoming more regulated in this moment, which leads over time to being more regulated overall. And I also said to her, think about how today is the most challenged you ever have to feel in relation to what is happening within your nervous system, because tomorrow you will be stronger as a result of what you've learned today. And tomorrow you will have more tools. And the day after that, even more. And the patience you have will grow, and the love and compassion you have within yourself, for your nervous system, will grow stronger and become one of your inner strengths each day as well. And the ways in which we learn to talk gently and lovingly to the nervous system instead of beat ourselves up, that ability grows every day, and you become more wise and more able, and you stand stronger on your own 2 feet. And every week you see growth from the previous. Not necessarily in the physical symptoms, to be specific, but in your emotional self, in your emotional ability to handle life. And as a result, the physical symptoms will change over time. And when you look at an imbalanced nervous system like this, you don't need to wait for a finish line to live your life, right? You don't need to wait until you are recovered in order to rejoice in life's beautiful moments. You don't need to be recovered to feel in love with yourself and in love with the life that you have right now. So I think have patience and be kind to yourself. Give yourself loads of grace. You are learning yourself right now. You are learning about your wounds from the past. You are learning how to move forward and leave those wounds in the past. And you are learning how to get the limbic system to agree to leave those in the past as well. And we do this day by day. And we're so lucky to have that opportunity, that we live in a world where information is at our fingertips, right? So I think looking at the little bits of evolution within ourselves that do occur every day in little but mighty ways is so much more powerful of a way to frame this process. Go ahead.
I love that. So beautiful. You take me back to when you were coaching with me and helping me to recognize the truth of this journey very similarly. And I'm so grateful that, out of all the coaches I could have picked, the universe brought me you, because I think that you do get past a lot of the bullshit around there in the coaching industry regarding neuroplasticity and bring people into their own personal journey in such a beautiful way. And I just love that. And I want to bring up this point because a few weeks ago, I was having a conversation with somebody, and I'm sure many of you who are listening right now or to the recording later are probably going to have this reaction where there's a little bit of a resistance when we talk about, this is a journey about learning how to like come home to yourself and learn how to live now and all this stuff. And the ego is like, no, I want to recover. I want to recover. I don't want that. Like, you're saying I'm going to have to live my life with chronic illness and learn how to be happy. And, and they freak out. They can't hear, they throw the baby out with the bathwater because it sounds like, Tessa, that what we're offering them is not what they want. We're offering them like, you're saying like, the ego is just like, please give me the guarantee. Please tell me I'm going to recover with this process. That's all I need to know. Tell me I'm going to be free of this. And so for those of you that are right now listening and getting uncomfortable and getting that white knuckle grip, first of all, know that's normal. Your ego is being challenged right now in what your plan was for why you're doing this. And we're disrupting that plan, where we're recommending to reevaluate that plan, knowing that you're better off and safer in the long run. Your likelihood of living, I think, even a more recovered life, to be honest, if you want to use that word, is through reorienting the purpose and why you're doing these tools and taking these practices and doing the coaching, to come home, to be the creator of your own, to be the one to help teach your nervous system how to regulate, and to learn how to live today, to learn how to see today, even with these symptoms, how you are more present than you were yesterday, like Tessa was saying, to give more space in the nervous system today and kind of surrender the timeline of when your symptoms start to resolve themselves, because you don't have control over that. But what you do have control over is your ability to come into the present moment and apply the tools and attempt to bring some balance into your nervous system. And this is so important to get what you have control over and what you don't. You don't have control of when the symptoms go away. So stop making goals about things you cannot control. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like I said before, if we focus on the emotional stuff and we put our efforts into recognizing what is feeding those physical symptoms, then naturally they will lift, they will dissipate. They have to, because we are working on our inner self. And so something I want to say before we're done is just to get to a place where you know so deeply and so wholeheartedly, so genuinely, that you have gathered all of the tools and abilities that will enable you to handle anything that life tosses your way, that you have a tool for everything. And once you are there, to me, I think the concept of a finish line entirely disappears. It's not even needed anymore, right? Because you have everything you need right here within you.
Yes, that's the freedom, Tessa.
Yeah.
Recognize you have the tools. Those of you in my membership that are listening right now, you have the tools, you have them. It's understanding why you're applying them and what the purpose is. And that right now, in this moment, you have the tools to come into some balance right now. Does that mean that it gets rid of your symptoms right now? Well, that's what you can't control, but you have the tools of coming into balance and doing that again and again in the freedom. Like, I know for me, my freedom was like, oh my gosh, no matter what happens to me in life, like my brain used to flash a lot of intrusive thoughts, people dying, this, once I realized that I had the tools to handle every one of those threats, I was free. Because I knew that despite maybe it causing a reaction in me, I would handle it. I would be there for me. I might not like what it was or how it felt, but I would be able to rebalance. I knew that.
I tell my clients, even if they don't believe it, when they are having a challenging moment, to say something like, I have a tool for this. I have a tool for this, and repeat that over and over again, because you do have a tool for it. But when our prefrontal cortex is hijacked by the limbic system, we have a hard time of thinking about what tool to use. So write it out and have it in front of you. Put your tools on a note card, the things that really work for you. You have a tool for everything. You just have to give yourself a few minutes to find it and to repeat, I have a tool for this, I have a tool for this, I have a tool for this. It gives you that time without engaging with the limbic behaviors, right? And without reacting, without resisting, whatever that limbic tendency would be. Just, I have a tool for this, and repeating it. That helped me so much. And I always was able to find something, even if it's just taking a deep breath. Or I know, Dr. Kat, you teach a lot of different modalities of healing. Just choose one. Mm-hmm. Because it will help, or it will give you a moment to then think of the tool that will be the best in that moment.
Mm-hmm. I love that. That's really great. I had a tool list as well that I wrote out. It's important. And, I think I wrote in the blog that one of my definitions of recovery was the ability to come back into balance in some way. Like, to me, that's recovery, that you have tools that, if you implement them, can help bring you into balance. Can it control everything around you? No. Do they control your body? Not necessarily, but you can come back into balance in your nervous system and, let the body, you'll be able to be with the body. You'll be able to be with what's happening. You'll be able to handle the circumstance around you. That's recovery. Somebody that can be in it all. I can be in it. And I think that the body does follow along when you do that, and you do feel a hell of a lot better. But that's the effect, not the goal.
Yes. Finding the comfort in the discomfort. I like to say, if you're able to sit with that discomfort, that in and of itself is a huge feat to achieve, and leads to so much more rebalancing. Is there any, I have just maybe like one or two more points, maybe not even. And then do you want to take questions?
Yeah,
We're
why
at
don't you
45.
finish your points,
Okay.
and then we'll take some questions.
So just kind of a silly little thing that I thought of myself as having little quirks and silly imperfections when I would have physical symptoms. And sometimes I would jokingly to myself say that I was malfunctioning because it made me laugh. And it took the physical symptoms to a much less serious note. Like I was a robot and I just needed a little bit of oil or grease to work out the kinks. And I really liked that idea, and I took that with me, and it made me laugh, and I wanted to share it because I thought of it in one of my coaching calls the other day. But overall, I never communicated to myself that I would need to recover from anything I was experiencing. And I'm really glad for that. So all of you listening to this, you can choose what resonates with you more. If still recovery is something that resonates with you, that's great. As long as you feel that you have a healthy relationship to it, and that you're not pulling any of the, expectations and the pressure and all of that comes along with it, just make sure that you have a healthy relationship to it. I hope if you are one of those people that feels they have a tricky relationship with the idea of recovery, that you choose to reshape that. And with reshaping the idea of it, also reshaping the pressure, the expectations, and the burden that it can bring when we allow that idea to have so much power over us, and it can direct us. It can be the source of so much of where we direct our thoughts and feelings and beliefs, and it really shouldn't. So you can choose to see it rather as a metamorphosis, a transformation, a rebalancing, however you want to think of it. Come up with your own term, but make sure that the pressure and the stress are not accompanying whatever you choose, because you deserve that gift to yourself. I hope that these thoughts were helpful from my own personal experience and from my clients. And I hope you all benefit from reshaping the concept if it is one that you have a complicated relationship with.
I love that. I think that my summary would be also choose a word that can be true for you today. Because if it's something that can only be true for you in the future, remember what we talked about in Primal Trust, that setup where the future is different from the now keeps us from the future. Choose a word that can be true today. One of the things I used to say before I used the word transformation was I would say, I am living today. I am living today. How can I live today? I get up in the morning, I might have all these symptoms, and I look in the mirror. How can I live today? Not, I got to fix this so that, in 6 months I can go live. How can I live today? I see Yvonne put a message in the chat box that kind of reminded me of that. She said, a lot of us get so stuck in intellectualizing and understanding teachings versus utilizing the tools from the teachings. We have to get out there, live life, and put them into practice. That's it. That is exactly it. And that's what we teach in Primal Trust, living as a way of resolving your unconscious conflicts that are causing your physical symptoms. Living and being present and being embodied. So whatever your word is, and if you choose to keep the word recovery, just find a way where it is something that can be true for you today. Then you can live today in non-resistance to what is, which opens up your nervous system and allows your self-healing to turn on.
Yes. So beautifully said.
Oh, thank you for, gosh, everything you said too. Tessa, you're amazing. I love our conversation so much.
Me too. You are amazing as well.
We just love each other. So we gotta bring each other in community. So yeah, if you guys have any questions while Tessa's here, I'm gonna let Tessa answer these since you guys hear enough from me. Any questions for Tessa while she's here with us? Just either raise your hand or in the chat box. Or any comments? Peggy?
Because I'm one of those people that Yvonne talked about in her note that seems to just need this understanding of the teachings. Help me how do I let go of that? I think that's what I've done my whole life. I've really had to understand, get a deep understanding of the concepts before I can really implement them. And can you help me develop a new tool to deal with that sort of need or compulsion to let go of that need to have such deep understanding?
I would say that the concepts are simple, and they can be simple. If they don't seem simple to you, they can seem simple. So if they seem complex and there's so much you need to learn, we need to get back to the basics. What is simple about this process? Like, what are you doing when you rebalance your nervous system, when you go through this transformation process? What are you doing? What is at the core of this process? All it is, it's us, our prefrontal cortex, teaching the limbic system that right now everything is actually safe, right? Because the limbic system, like I said earlier, it's not equipped. It was never equipped, and it has never evolved to understand the stressors of today. So that's why it becomes overwhelmed by prolonged emotional stress. And then, sorry, a side note really quick, that when I say that to clients, some of them will come back and say, yeah, but I have physical stressors too. Yes, that can be impactful as well to the limbic system. But what comes with the physical stress that you've experienced? Emotional stress, right? Fear or frustration or some kind of an emotional response. So anyway, so I would say to you to simplify it for yourself. And if you're not already, summarize what you've learned in the most simplex terms that you possibly can, and just write those down. Don't write down everything about the stress chemicals and the amygdala does this and then this stuff happens in the hippocampus. You don't need that information in order to rebalance your nervous system. You need to hear that once and then take that and interpret it in your own way. So when I teach, I know it's very different from what Dr. Kat teaches, but we're teaching the same things. And my language is something, my concepts and my language, I created those for myself because that's how I best understood what was happening to me. And it enabled me to use tools and to know what tools to use in the moment, because I wasn't overburdened with like different concepts and language that was like elevated. We don't need it to be complex. So I think just simplify it. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, yes, it does. Thank you.
Anyone else have a question? I love what you said, Tessa. It does come down to like there are all these teachings of how all this works. And, I teach a lot of it because a lot of our minds sort of like need this. I always say our minds need a bone to chew on to kind of almost keep it busy while we're, implementing the tools and living.
Yes.
It is simple. And it comes down to like, am I present and am I intentionally bringing in a higher, better perspective into this moment so that my nervous system can feel safe or not? I see another question, so I'll pause. Karina?
Hi, let's see. I hope my video works. I'm out in the woods. I have quite an attachment to getting rid of certain symptoms because it feels like they're blocking me from doing things that are really aligned with who I am. And I think that's the main source of my sort of resistance to symptoms and focus on like recovery. Do you have any advice for how I can change my thinking in that sense?
Yeah. So this attachment to getting rid of symptoms puts a lot of pressure on us. And so in those moments where you feel like you're being blocked from aligning with who you are, that's a lot of pressure for you to get rid of these symptoms. And so you can align with who you really are. So I would say take the pressure off and recognize that you can align with who you really are in any moment and not to need it to be in, any certain circumstance. Just right now, I can align with who I am. And in that way, we must take the pressure off. So if there's a different way that you can reframe it, where you can take the pressure off of yourself, because think about what happens when we put pressure on ourselves. So your goal is to align with who you really are. And to be able to get to that point, we have to take off the pressure, because the limbic system is in this state right now because of pressure, right? Because of pressure and stress and expectations. So really, you kind of have to you have to have a conversation with yourself to say, I must relieve the pressure of this situation, because all I am doing is I am telling the limbic system that we are not safe right now. Pressure tells the limbic system we are not safe. And I've said this in a previous talk, but the limbic system, it can't really differentiate between pressure we're putting on ourselves, pressure we get from others, frustration because we just tripped and fell, embarrassment because we tripped and fell in front of people, and there's a lion chasing us. The limbic system right now in its hypersensitized state is going to see all of those as the same thing. And so it's going to bring you more of what you don't want. It's going to bring you more of the physical symptoms, which is something you want to shed so badly. So I would say, find a place where you can surrender to the physical symptoms. I know it's not easy, but if you use the logic that I just described and you say to yourself,
Oh,
comfort here, if I can surrender to these, if I cannot put pressure on them to shift or change, then I release all resistance and I release all pressure. And then I can communicate in that way to my limbic system that everything actually is more safe right now. And the more you practice that every day, the more regulated your nervous system becomes. So just remember, any pressure you put on yourself for any reason is going to communicate to the limbic system that you are not safe right now.
Mhm.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. I know pressure is the issue.
Mm,
Can
I've
ask
been
a
there.
follow-up? Is that okay?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I definitely have made some progress on reducing my own pressure on myself, but I am seeing a pattern where I'm still trying to live up to other people, like my parents' expectations and desires for me, and they just want me to be healthy because they love me, but in my limbic system, that feels like pressure. Do you have any advice for that?
Yeah. So they want you to be healthy. It feels like pressure to your limbic system. I would say a reframing needs to happen here. Probably using the same logic that we just discussed, and really sit down. I know this sounds a little bit silly and elementary, but remember that your limbic system is like a 3-year-old. So I think a lot of times when we have conversations with our limbic system, we do it from our prefrontal cortex, which is a lot more sophisticated. And so we have to remember, we really have to break it down for the limbic system. So using that same logic I described, sit down when you feel the pressure from your parents who just love you and want you to heal. Sit down and think to yourself and talk to your limbic system. Okay, limbic system, I hear that you are feeling so much pressure from your parents. And then explain it to the limbic system in such simple terms, but be really obvious as well. So like, limbic system, they love you. All they want for you to do is heal. So you can take all of the time you need. You could take 10 years if you wanted to. Use an exaggerated amount of time that just says to you, like, I have all that time. Oh, of course I can do that, right? Bring yourself comfort in that way. I used to tell myself, if this took 8 years, I don't care, because I know at that 8th year, I'm going to be so much better every year. Right. So I would just sit down and have that conversation with the limbic system, really break it down as if you were talking to a 3-year-old. That's the piece I find we often miss when we're breaking things down like this.
Okay, thank you so much. I will try that.
Yeah, try it.
Mm. It's so good. It is a process of, inquiry, like,
Are you still there, Dr. Kat? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I
Oh,
can.
okay. Yeah, I always love what you have to say. And I think it's so important that at every moment it's recognizing, like, is this helping my process of rebalancing or transformation? Or is this putting the pressure that I have to not have physical symptoms in order to align? That would be an inquiry moment. Is it true that you have to be able to do these things in order to align? And yeah, so good. So thank you. Okay, it is the hour. Tessa, thank you so much. Like, you have so many words of wisdom there. I hope that those of you listening jotted down some of the things she said, because they were really, really great. And
Thank you.
yeah, so, and then Tessa, can you just, since this is going to be on YouTube, tell people how they can find you if they feel like they want to get in touch with you?
Sure. Yeah. My website is the best place, tessamalcarne.com. And that's TessaMalcarne.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you, everybody. We'll be
Yeah. Thank you.
continuing to have more discussions. I'm going to end the recording for right now.